Hello everyone, welcome to Learning with Law. Today we're going to talk about how teachers are going to go back to school and what are the students going to do? What type of learning are they going to have? Is it going to be digital? Is it going to be in the classroom? Or a combination of both? I just wanted to give you a little update about me before we get started. I am an English teacher of almost 12 years. I'm going on my 12th year this August. I've been teaching English for 11 years, both in Orlando, Florida, and on Long Island, New York. I just moved down to Orlando last August. So I had my first year teaching here in Orlando this past year. So that's a little background about me. I've been teaching in regular English classrooms, English honors, special classes, and I was also a co-teacher both as the general education teacher and the special education teacher. I have a long resume. I have tons of experience teaching English 7 through 12. Today in this video, I'm going to be talking about some CDC recommendations as far as how we're going to return back to school, both teachers and students. What are some options for going back to school, and my personal predictions on what will happen in the fall. So before we get to the video, please make sure, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to my channel so you can be the first one updated when my videos release. It also helps me out a lot, so please make sure you're showing me some love by liking and subscribing. Thank you so much.
The CDC states that students and teachers should not share any personal belongings. This includes pens, pencils, markers, crayons, paper. I don't know about you, but I'm a teacher and I'm constantly having to give my students, my 10th grade students, pens and paper. So if we're not supposed to share those supplies, if that's something that the CDC is recommending we not do, what about the students that don't have access to these supplies at home? How will they be able to function throughout the schoolwork day? So that's a concern that a lot of people have. Another thing is that the CDC recommends everyone should stay 6 feet apart. That means the desks and in the hallway, in addition to the buses. So if you are taking a school bus every day to school, the CDC is recommending that there should be 1 seat per child. This is something that school districts really need to take a close look at. And if they're eliminating the amount of students per bus, is that increasing the amount of buses or increasing the amount of cars and drop-offs that are occurring in the school districts? In addition to that, it's saying anyone over the age of 2 and that is going to a facility needs to be wearing a mask. So this includes even elementary school children. Another thing that the CDC is recommending is that all students be walking in one direction in the hallway. Another thing that the CDC is recommending is to avoid common areas. The larger classes, such as physical education, music classes, and theater classes, be done within a classroom setting. They don't want to increase the number of students within that particular class. So if they're staying in one room, they still need to be 6 feet apart, but those classes can still continue. CDC is also saying that it recommends pre-packaged food. They are not recommending that they have food prepared within the cafeteria. They want to make sure that the children are staying away from any exposed food and have pre-packaged meals that are eaten within the classroom. CDC is also recommending that some students stay with the same teacher instead of changing classes. This is going to be a huge adaptation that teachers are going to have to undergo. If teachers are used to having classes change every 40 to 50 minutes, how is this going to affect and change your schedule? CDC is also recommending that they stagger the arrival and departure times for students. This is something that I think makes the most sense out of all of these recommendations. If we're having students have to be spread out in the hallways, on buses, and in classrooms, the only way to do this is to stagger your arrival and departure times. The CDC also states that schools are not responsible to screen students and staff for cases of COVID-19. So this is not talking about temperature checks. They actually encourage school districts to do that throughout the school day. But they are saying that they're not expected to give the screening test for COVID-19. They do say that they want to do temperature checks regularly, but having the actual COVID test is not something that the school districts are expected to do. CDC is also recommending to limit the amount of students that are using the playground. Again, it's not something that is ideal for elementary school students. The CDC is also recommending that cross-school transfers are limited to virtual learning. So what does this mean? This means any type of program like a BOCES program or any extracurricular activity that requires you to move from one school to the next to complete that particular program. The CDC would like to recommend that that is turned over to virtual learning as opposed to moving from one school to the next. Also, to reduce congestion within the health office, they're only recommending that students that show flu-like symptoms are sent to the health office as opposed to sending kids with minor symptoms. So what's going to happen to those other students that don't feel well but still don't have those flu-like symptoms? And again, the CDC is continuing to reevaluate their recommendations to see what is going to fit the needs of the school district. And this is an ongoing process. This is not something that there is a one answer fix for what is going on right now in the world. So please make sure that you are regularly checking the CDC website in order to stay up to date with these procedures. That's if we go back to physical classrooms to begin the school year. Now, this is something that might not happen in September or in August. So what are some other options that are being looked at? Well, everyone is discussing the idea of continuing distance learning. So that is when the teacher puts assignments on the internet, whether it be videos, whether it be conferences, digital assignments, anything of that nature. That's all going back to digital learning. Is that going to continue? That's one option. Another option is doing a hybrid or blended classroom. So those two words are sometimes used synonymously, but they are slightly different. So hybrid classes are done mostly online. They have the teacher giving a lecture, and there is also interaction with the teacher. So this is probably done with a Zoom, Google Meets, Skype type of interaction. And then the students would go into an actual school building. And now I assume, obviously, if the students are going into a classroom, a physical classroom, they will be going with the CDC recommendations. And I am assuming that this will be a half-day placement. Half of the day will be virtual, half of the day will be in a classroom setting. So a blended or a flipped classroom is when the students preview the materials that they are going to learn when they get into their brick and mortar setting. So this could be through a preview video, preview readings, or any other digital experience for those students. So they have an understanding of what the lesson will be about. Then when they get into that classroom setting, they will be instructed by the teacher. The benefit of this is they can limit the amount of in-school time that the students have. So if the student is prepared before going into the brick and mortar setting, they will most likely grasp onto that concept a little bit quicker once they get into that school setting. That is in an ideal world, of course, if the student is preparing at home. Other questions that people might have is what's going to happen with the attendance policy? I feel like when we started distance learning, attendance has been a mess. How do we accurately assess when a student is participating in your class, how their attendance will reflect? If a student is completing work one day out of the week, but finishing everything within that day, do they receive attendance for the entire week or just that day? They've completed their assignments, so what do we do with attendance? Again, if we go back to school and use the CDC recommendations, what will happen with attendance that way? Are they going to be more lenient with attendance? We don't want to create an atmosphere where you must attend school whether you feel sick or not. We need to get rid of the perfect attendance certificates because students might feel pressure to come to school when they are not feeling well, and we do not want to continue the spread of the virus. So what's going to happen in August or September when the students return to school?
My hope is that they do some sort of blended classroom where students come into school for half of the day and complete their work in the classroom as well as online. So for the second half of the day, they go home and complete some work digitally. That is my hope. Because honestly, I don't know how I feel about going back to school normally with the same procedures set in place. I think that there are a lot of things to consider, and school districts really do have a tough decision to make come August or September. So let's see what happens, and I will continue to update you on new developments with the CDC as well as schools. Thank you so much for watching my channel. Please make sure that you like and subscribe. It really helps me out, and you get a first look at my new videos. Thank you so much. Have a great day.